This lake contains thousands of years of ancient history. This is Lake Nasser, the world's largest man-made lake. This stretch of the Nile is almost completely forgotten. Glorious reminders of ancient Egypt and their neighbors to the south, the Nubians, with its temples dedicated to mysterious gods.
The island of Osiris, equal on either side.
And tombs built to house the soul for eternity.
He was an Egyptian man sent down into Nubia to control the taxes coming up from the kingdom of Kush. This is the real ancient Egypt.
A landscape unspoiled by tourists. That is why I am sailing down the length of the Egyptian Lake Nasser to bring you closer to discover the history of these wonderful sites.
We are now approaching Wadi es-Sebua, the Valley of the Lions.
These ancient marvels had to be rescued in the 60s from the flooding created by the lake. A 2-decade-long international effort to save history. As I travel the entire length of Lake Nasser by boat, we stop at every site along the way.
I'm going to take you to see the top of Philae Temple. This fortress was used as a hideout. Let's go see inside.
To discover the Egyptian history, as well as the connection to their ancient foe, the Nubians.
Ramses on his horse and chariot, shooting his bow and arrow.
From the struggles of Thutmose and Hatshepsut,
the real builder of this temple,
to the spectacular achievements of Egypt's greatest pharaoh, Ramses II.
He is here, a high priest. Tawazre became a fully fledged pharaoh.
His endearing love for Queen Nefertari,
shown as equals. The original location for the Temple of Dakka.
And we investigate the kings of Nubia, some of which you may have never heard of before. Come with on this epic voyage through 5,000 years of history. Join me as we sail towards the ancient land of gold. Egyptian President Nasser holds a press conference and officially announces the construction of the Aswan High Dam. In addition to the Aswan Low Dam, this was to create the world's largest man-made lake. But a consequence of this was the flooding of tens of ancient Egyptian monuments. Delegates selected by UNESCO came together from all around the world in Egypt in a project headed by Christine de Roche-Noblecoeur. It was her idea to dismantle the temples and relocate them to save them from the monumental rise in water levels. But time was against them. Were they to stop the economic growth of modern Egypt or hold on to the ancient past? The lake, spanning 500 kilometers and 16 kilometers wide, was to bring new irrigation systems to Egypt, as well as providing them with constant electricity. Thousands of Nubian and Sudanese families saw their houses washed away. The Egyptian government relocated them to new locations. In 1964, President Nasser pressed the button and the lake began to fill. This was the moment that the landscape of Egypt changed forever. The teams moving the temples only had 10 years left to move them before they were completely submerged. Some sites, like the mud brick fortress of Buhen, had to be left behind to flood, Only images remain today. Other temples had to be dismantled and relocated, a project that took over a decade for some. Many countries helped fund the giant relocation project. Egypt's way to thank these foreign nations was gifting them smaller temples to display in their museums. Like the Temple of Dendur in New York, Tafet Temple given to the Netherlands, Elysia, the rock-cut temple given to Italy, now in Turin, and to Spain, the Temple of Debod, relocated to Madrid. By 1970, the dam was complete. By 1974, the reservoir had been filled. The majority of the temples had been successfully relocated. In the late 90s, cruise boats began to take tourists. This closed less than 5 years later. And only in recent years has it reopened with less than 5 boats welcoming visitors.
This is Aswan, Egypt's hottest city, but also my favorite.
What better way to start our journey than at the bustling Aswan market?
It's really pretty, isn't it? It's so beautiful.
Isn't it gorgeous?
I love it.
This market is not only for tourists, but for locals as well, and is filled with the heady aroma of exotic spices. These spices have been imported into Egypt for thousands of years, from deep south in Nubia and as far as Punt, modern-day Eritrea or Ethiopia. Hopping onto a motorboat on the Nile allows us to experience the vast amount of cultures that surround this body of water in Aswan. From the remains of the ancient Egyptian Nilometer on Elephantine Island, and we pass the old Cataract Hotel inspired by modern Arab decor. This spot also inspired Agatha Christie's Death on the Nile.
Welcome to Aswan.
Thank you, I love it.
It's absolutely incredible.
Oh, well.
We're riding on the top of a boat. Where are we going, Curtis?
We're going to the Nubian village. We're going to go have dinner and look at the market.
That sounds amazing.
Do more damage.
Yes.
Are we going to find lots of fun things in the village?
Yes, very traditional. We need a boat like that.
Oh, party boats!
Party boat.
This setting can't be more different from ancient times, yet we feel connected on this thought-provoking sail towards the Nubian village.
Welcome to the Nubian village, Stephanie.
Fabulous.
It is going to be quite an experience for you because Nubian is a very different culture to Egyptian. They're all about color and light, and it's really something quite special.
I love the colour, I love the geometric patterns.
Everything, all the houses have this beautiful color on it. So I can't wait to show you the market. It's going to be like really traditional things.
Are they fun things?
Yeah, not Egyptian, Nubian.
All right, let's have a look.
Let's go.
The people living in this village were relocated from northern Sudan when Egypt created Lake Nasser.
I like that one.
This one. I like this one.
And yet out of the tragedy of their relocation, they have revived their culture. The Nubians here have regained their joy on this beautiful island with their infectious smiles.
There's this little man here. I like him. Which one? This one. Yeah. I'll take him. Put this back.
Man and woman.
Man and woman.
Yeah, man and woman.
They match. Look.
Yeah.
Aren't they cute?
Okay.
Okay.
Good? Come.
You want me to try it?
Open here. Right one. This one. Yes. Now? Change. No. Yeah.
So much has changed, yet stayed the same. The Nubian cuisine is one of my favorite in Egypt, and I always make sure to visit this restaurant when I arrive.
Yeah, I'll definitely have some of that. It's beautiful. That's so
To fully understand Lake Nasser, we begin our journey just on the other side of the Aswan Dam, high up on the hill of Qubbet el-Hawa.
Morning, Curtis.
Off to Qubbet el-Hawa, which is the mountain here that has tombs dating back to the 6th dynasty.
To reach these 4,400-year-old tombs up on the hill, we have a special form of transport. I just hope everyone's up for an adventure.
Lean back, guys. Hold on.
This is a bit surreal.
Isn't it awesome?
Just think the spirits of the ancient dead get to enjoy this glistening view every day. This tomb belonged to a man who was the ruler of Elephantine Island. Surprisingly, this extravagant tomb is from a non-monarch, a nomarch. Sarenput. And his son is here, Ankh-Nura.
A lot of these tombs were reused in
Yes.
later dynasties as mass burials.
Yes.
And in here, so if you look here, Stephanie, you can actually see the human remains. We can see someone's lower vertebra.
My goodness. Poor person.
Around 1800 BC, during the reign of Pharaoh Senusert, Sarenput independently ruled over Elephantine, placing his name into a royal cartouche, meaning Nub Kaura, the golden spirit of Ra. Pharaoh Senusert had gone into Nubia and conquered it. Now, nomarch Sarenput was in charge of all the trade from Nubia that had to pass through Elephantine into Egypt.
Just step into here a little bit. You'll see there is the elephant.
Yes.
And that's Elephantine. You see the T is the loaf of bread, the square thing. Well, the round dome with the flat bottom.
Okay.
And the N is actually water.
Nile.
Nile. So Elephantine. And that little mound means place. So place of Elephantine.
Fascinating.
Yeah. Ruled by Sarenput at the time.
And these were the offerings that he was giving in terms of food?
Yes. So his son here is offering food to Sarenput. Pomegranates, duck, looks like bread, a cow, and then jars of wine and beer at the bottom.
It's a very decent meal.
That's a very decent meal. And you can see his wife is offering something even better. She's got a whole leg of beef over there. Yeah. If you look on this side, you can see the tomb was never properly finished because the grid is still visible for the carvings.
That's so touching, actually. The thought that we can see the workings out still of the artist. Where would they have brought the offerings? Because it might just be me, but there was a creepy looking stone as we came in that had like a little ridge almost as though from
So that's water. So water was poured over the offerings to purify them, and then water. And that table is called a het. Het, which is offering.
An earlier tomb belonging to a man named Sanbi from around 2200 BC. He was sent into Nubia to recover his father's body, who had died during an expedition there to recover gold from the country.
This is a false door. One of the biggest false doors I've ever seen. The function of a false door is so that offerings would be left for the dead and the spirit of the dead could come out and receive the offerings. So this is the portal to heaven. This is why I bring this little light with me.
Yes.
This is the burial chamber of the tomb owner, Senebi.
So he was hidden away from any grave robbers.
Yeah. This would have been filled in and then covered with hieroglyphs.
Yes.
So they couldn't find the body.
So it looked like just a normal wall.
Exactly.
Yet not all tombs are beautifully decorated like Senebi and his fathers. Other tombs, during the later period, during the economic downturn, are quite derelict in their decoration.
Are you ready for an adventure?
Always. But does it all go down now?
Yes, let's go.
You bring me to the best places, Curtis.
I'll try. Take my hand.
And we will never see them again.
There's a lot of bats down here. They're coming in there.
What's amazing is the sand, all the dust in the air. Yes. Oh, there's some bats. Oh.
Sorry, didn't mean to intrude. So this is what it must feel like for the mummies. We're seeing the outer bit, but this is where the mummies were resting. For
This is your
thousands of
life.
years.
Yeah.
I prefer it out there.
Shall we go back?
You want to go?
Let's go together. Whoa.
Oh, it goes round there. Look, follow the bats. They're all going round there. If this collapses, my mother will kill you all over again.
It's okay, because we'll be dead.
It goes down. How does it goes down?
Oh, wow.
Where are we?
We are going into the underworld.
It really feels like it. It's almost as though the bats are trying to get us to follow them. They keep coming up and going, look, this way, this way,
That's
this
the
way.
burial chamber down there.
That's the burial chamber. I can...
Oh, don't go too fast, Stephanie.
No, I won't. I'm just going to look at the burial chamber.
It's okay. Stephanie.
I can't believe how far we are from the others. We only meant to come a few feet, but it's too fascinating.
It's too fascinating. We're
following the bats.
in the underworld. Okay.
What can you see down there?
I can actually see a piece of
A piece of bat.
a piece of his sarcophagus.
Really?
There's the sarcophagus.
Oh my goodness,
see it?
yes. Yeah. That cut
We
stone.
are in a 6th dynasty burial chamber.
This is amazing, Curtis. I was not expecting this.
I love it, but Stephanie, I think it's time to go back. Let's go.
Mummy's still waiting up there, looking pretty anxious.
Yeah,
I think I better rejoin the living.
let's go. Mummy up there. Oh,
Oh, light. I love it.
let's go. Okay, are you okay?
I feel like Lara Croft.
Oh,
Just shame we're coming out with no treasure.
we made it. Oh,
That was amazing. Thank you.
What marvelous things did you see?
Amazing. We went all the way around and then down. We followed the bats and it went down into the actual tomb.
Now their spirits enjoy this beautiful view from their rock-cut tombs in the mountain of Qubbet el-Hawa. This necropolis on the border of Egypt and Nubia had been used for over 4,000 years. Then, in the 5th and the 6th century, in the Byzantine period, this tomb was reconditioned into a Christian church. It's strange to think that a place such as this has been subject to the worship of so many different higher beings, such as the tomb of Sarenput I, the mayor of Elephantine and the high priest of the patron god of the island, which just happens to be our next stop on our adventure toward Nubia. And after that thrilling visit, I think we'll call it a day. Water is the lifeline of Egypt, obviously, and it is not uncommon to find canals such as this built into the desert. providing much relief for the locals. Our relief from the scorching Aswan sun comes from this laid-back cafe, built in the shadow of the tombs. Khnum, the god that was worshipped here at Elephantine, the ram that lived on this island, the god of creation, the one who would mold the image of man.
We have something here which is very typical even in today's world, right?
Yes, right.
Yeah. What is this? This is something to do with, I first thought it was a divorce contract because of everything that the man had to pay, but it's something else.
No, it is marriage contract, like a deal between the man and his wife. If he divorces her, he will pay that and that for her.
Okay,
If
like a prenuptial agreement.
Yes, like agreement, yeah.
Okay.
So they discussed all their life together. If they got divorced, what he has to pay. If they be in conflict together, what they have. It is like a map to their life.
Yeah, yeah.
Something like we have today.
Exactly, exactly. And it's written in hieratic, which is very difficult to read actually because it's the cursive form of hieroglyphs.
Yes, it is for the public. Yes, the font of the public.
Exactly.
Not like the hieroglyphs, may be much easier for us to read the hieroglyphs or other translations.
So this is a contract from the time of Nectanebo.
Nectanebo II,
Yes.
yeah.
And Nectanebo lived in this area of Egypt. He built the temple.
He controlled this area and dominated this area during his time. And you know, Nectanebo was the last pharaoh from the pharaonic era.
Last native pharaoh.
Good.
Exactly.
Good to mention that.
Exactly.
Last native pharaoh.
So we have, this contract. And inside here, he's talking about how he has to pay so much linen to his wife.
Yes.
How much grain, if they have children. Silver as well. Oil.
Yes.
Okay.
And also the relation, how she wash his dresses and how she deal inside the house.
Yeah. Okay, so for her as well, not just from his side.
No, from him, his side and her side.
Okay.
Her side, his side and her side.
Well, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
So it was a mutual agreement between the two of them.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it is something very, very civilized to organize their life. It is like a deal to not after that someone say, I didn't say that.
Exactly.
It is like contract and paper. And every one of them has like a copy. He can show this copy if they get in argument or problem.
Yeah. It's like what they say, happy wife, happy life.
Happy wife, happy life, yeah.
Or, in this case, happy concubine, happy pharaoh.
Happy concubine, happy pharaoh. Yeah, that easy, yeah.
The island's own independent colonial-style museum contains traces of many different cultures, like this Nubian vase, and even ancient Christian and Jewish clay figurines. A grand display of Greco-Roman coins. These appear to be crafted out of terracotta and glazed in gold. And traces of its original pharaonic ancient Egyptian roots. We can tell that this statue found on the island is of Sesostris III from his unique facial features.
Very subtle changes, but there are differences.
Sesostris I, II, and III left huge legacies here at Elephantine during their expeditions to conquer Nubia. And of course pieces dedicated to the gods, like the local god of Elephantine, Khnum, the ram. All the pieces on display in this museum were found on this island, making it unique. My favorite pieces in this museum are these bronze cobra uraei, which would have sat atop a pharaoh's crown. Imagine how these once glistened in the sun. Many pharaohs sought out to conquer Nubia to the south of Egypt.
One of the main deities that were worshipped here at Elephantine, apart from the main god of the island, which is Khnum, we have Anuket. And Anuket is a very interesting goddess. She's known for protecting the Nile. And what's really strange, she's shown with this sort of cone-shaped crown. And this cone-shaped crown is what inspired Nefertiti to have her own crown. Because Nefertiti is shown with a unique crown only worn by Nefertiti. And here we can see that quite well, that this crown is what inspired Nefertiti. So in a way, because Nefertiti was divine in her own way, Nefertiti might have been wanting to connect with the protection of the Nile.
There are many temples on Elephantine Island dedicated to female deities, like this one dedicated to the goddess of love and beauty, Hathor. This temple is attributed to a pharaoh who spread the empire deeper into Nubia.
We have Thutmose III here, wearing his military uniform, being blessed by the creator god, Khnum. On the other side, we have Satis, shown with the crown, the white crown of Egypt, wearing a double falcon necklace. She's so beautiful. And she is on the other side, holding Thutmose next to Amun.
Yet it was a female pharaoh who commissioned this temple, the stepmother of Thutmose III.
Hatshepsut here, we know it's Hatshepsut because she has been completely chiseled out. All the chisel marks are visible here. And it's interesting because this temple, you can see the images inside the temple actually resemble Hatshepsut, not Thutmose III. It's a more feminine face. But Thutmose III came in, stamped his name, and took out Hatshepsut. But some good guy did come along at one point, and some of the names of Thutmoses have been hacked out because that guy knew that this was the real builder of this temple. This is Hatshepsut, and here is an example of where someone came in. They knew that this is not Thutmoses. They came, they started chipping out his name, and someone caught them because obviously they had stopped.
Thutmose III's son and successor, Amenhotep II, built a small chapel here, and his son, Thutmose IV, went on to build a beautifully decorated chapel after one of his campaigns in Nubia, and he dedicated it to a Nubian god.
Thutmose IV being offered the key of life from the Nubian god of this region, Mandulus.
This island has layers upon layers upon layers of habitation. Ancient Egyptian homes built over by Roman homes, then built over again by Christian and Jewish homes. Elephantine was a great meeting and trading point for thousands of years, yet Aswan's export was granite.
A naos here, lying on its side, made out of granite from this area from Aswan, some of the best granite in Egypt. And this naos would have housed a statue to Khnum, the ram-headed god.
This island was not only a place of worship. Many houses made of mud brick are dotted around, layers upon layers of thousands of years of habitation.
We have just been presented with a mummified child's foot, a baby's foot. One of the guys here have found it in one of these homes. It is, you can see the temples, you can see the homes, Lami.
Mm-hmm.
But when you come in contact with an ancient Egyptian, a piece of the real person.
Different feelings at all.
Yeah.
And the baby has like only 4 months or 6 months. It seems very, very small. I think only 4 or 6 months, not bigger than this.
It's amazing.
We can feel their spirit, how they...
This is the real person.
Real person, real baby. We can imagine how his father was sad and his mother was sad when he passed away.
Yeah.
So now, me and you, we went back thousands of years with them with this baby. Food.
Exactly. This is the real ancient Egypt right here. Yeah.
The first time in my life to see a baby mummified.
It's very touching.
Yes, very, very touching. Very.
Shukran Gazela.
Elephantine is a strange mix of habitation, temples, and tombs. Around 2250 BC, Hekaib, a nomarch around the reign of Pharaoh Pepi, had fought against the Nubians and became the pharaoh's chief trading officer. Hekaib was revered by many, including his very distant successor, Sarenput. Going back to that mummified baby's foot, it made me think about the people that lived here, not the pharaohs, the ordinary people. What was life like for them?
So that was truly fascinating. I mean, the fact that Elephantine is obviously the cross-section of a lot of ancient history and even into the modern world and cultural as well is absolutely fascinating.
Because of the building of Lake Nasser, many of the sites that had pieces relocated needed to be housed, and a beautiful museum was constructed, the Nubian Museum in Aswan, where we are heading to learn more about the vast mix of cultures here. Like this colossus of Ramses II that was relocated.
Lake Nasser, 350 in Egypt and 150 in Sudan.
Lake Nasser is the largest man-made lake in the world. And because of the lake, many places were flooded for forever, including its prehistoric sites.
Here we have a pre-dynastic burial. We see these quite often. But what's interesting, these pre-dynastic burials are done in a way where there is ritual taking place. These people were not just thrown into the ground. They were placed with things that they would need in the next life, like pottery and tools for their work. So even thousands of years ago, 5,000, 6,000 years ago, before Egypt became an empire, before Egypt was conquered by Pharaoh Narmer and reunited, they had this idea of afterlife.
In 744 BC, Egypt was in the midst of another intermediate period. The country had become divided. The Nubians in the south saw the gap in Egypt's strength. They invaded and took over power of Egypt.
This statue is of a Nubian high priest. His name is Horem Akhet. And Horem Akhet is actually the name of the Great Sphinx of Giza. It's very interesting that he took the same name of Horem Akhet, the horizon of Horus. He's a high priest from Nubia, and he's the only person that we have shown with an ankh necklace around his neck. The only person in the whole of Egyptian statuary, he was shown unique.
He is the royal descendant of the founder of the 25th dynasty. Shabaka was his father and the third Nubian king to rule Egypt. Yet these Nubians did not rule Egypt for more than 100 years. They were chased out by the Assyrians in a great battle with the last Nubian ruler to fully control Egypt.
These giant Shabtis belonged to a great Nubian pharaoh who came into Egypt after his forefathers had taken Egypt back from invaders and brought the religion back up to its original standing. Shortly after, though, the Nubians were chased out of Egypt yet again. But these are some great examples of the funerary practices of Pharaoh Taharka.
Taharka was this last great Nubian pharaoh to fully rule over Egypt. The enemy of the ancient Egyptians for thousands of years were only able to rise up against them for less than 100 years. The Egyptians then defeated the invading Assyrians and took back control. Trade still continued with the Nubians.
This is a little golden pendant of the god Horus. And what's great about this is, in Nubia, Horus was known as the Golden Horus. So this is the Egyptian and Nubian coming together. And Nubia means land of gold. So therefore, Horus is golden.
This statue shows a Nubian man, Iri Ketakana. He was sent in the 7th century BC into Egypt as a representative of the king of Kush to discuss political and trade relations. The Nubians' reign in Egypt had heavily influenced their culture. They went back to Nubia and built pyramids and temples in the style of the Egyptians. They continued many traditions from the ancient Egyptians. The Kushite Nubian king Aspelta, shown here on an Egyptianized stela. This was his coronation before the god Amun and Mut at Jebel Barkal, down deep in Sudan, from where he ruled in the 6th century BC. This is the last native Egyptian pharaoh, Nectanebo II. He was conquered by the Persians in 343 BC. This museum contains amazing pieces recalling the memory of ancient Egypt and ancient Nubia. Like this, the daughter of one of Egypt's greatest pharaohs, Ramses II.
In temples, they would have sacred animals. Like at Kamombo, they had a sacred crocodile. And when that animal died, it was mummified, similar to the Apis bull, which we see at the Serapeum at Saqqara. Here at Elephantine, they worshipped Khnum, the ram. And here is one of those sacred rams that they kept in the temple. Once it died, it was mummified and covered in an elaborate golden mask, similar to a pharaoh.
Yet in later dynasties, gold was not only reserved for a pharaoh. Nearing the death of Cleopatra, many people were decorated with gold in the afterlife. These coffins were found at Qubbet el-Hawa, high up on the hill of Aswan. Coming from thousands of years apart, these are some of the most unique coffins you will see. We are on our way to one of Aswan's most popular tourist sites. When you see it, you will understand just why it is so popular. A site filled with history, beauty, mystery, and more. On the dock, before we board our boat to reach the island, we pass through a market filled with colorful handmade trinkets and locally mined gemstones. The island we are going to was relocated when Lake Nasser and the High Dam were created.
When the British built this dam here on 1890, and they also make it higher and higher until 1902. Of course, when you have a dam, you will have a lake behind the dam. So this lake made like part of Nubian to leave the area to other places in Egypt. And the problem is the temple of Isis submerged under the water. The life come back again to this temple when they built the high dam at the south. So the level of water in this area became lower. So when it became lower, so they could to see a new island appear. The Egyptian government informed UNESCO, so we can see a new island, we can move the temple on it. So one dam gave the death to the temple, and the other dam gave the life to the temple.
Wow.
Almost as if spawned from the water, we see the beautiful and majestic Philae temple. Further south, we enter a controlled buffer zone between the Nile and Lake Nasser.
Philae Temple, the Temple of Isis, the Temple of Hathor is there as well. But we're not just going to see Philae today. There is another place very nearby, a counterpart island that I want to take everybody to see.
By 1906, the low dam had submerged Philae, but now, how would the high dam affect it?
There is the old location of Philae temple, and they moved it around 1972, and they finished the project in 1981. And it's happened when they built the high dam, so the level of water between the two dams, the British dam over there and the high dam, became lower. So they could to see the Angelica Island. They surround the temple was like 3,000 wedges made of stainless steel. To surround the temple was and to not allow to the water to be in, so they surround it totally and completely, and they cut it around into thousands of pieces and move it from here to there.
By controlling the water, now one of Egypt's most beautiful temples can be gazed upon yet again. Here the wife of the god of the next life, Isis, was worshipped. Isis, not being a selfish goddess, shared the island with Hathor. The most ancient part of this site dates back to Pharaoh Nectanebo in 360 BC, although the majority of this site is built by the Greek ruling pharaohs, the Ptolemies.
The Romans had a big settlement here in Aswan. We even have a Roman emperor here shown in full pharaonic dress, giving offerings to a Nubian god, the god Mandalus. Mandalus's main temple was further south. We will be going there, but it's so interesting that you can see the Romans getting involved in Egyptian and even Nubian culture.
With the death of Cleopatra, the Romans invaded Egypt, followed by the Christians. The final people to worship the ancient Egyptian gods lived here. This text in Greek tells us in 394 AD, this site was cleansed of the pagan Egyptian gods.
This image here of Ptolemy has such a great example of the Coptic chipping to remove the images, the pagan images, from this temple.
The Egyptians believed that defacing an image would take away the spirit connected to it. Ironically, Ptolemy is shown here smiting the enemies of Egypt, whose faces have also been chipped out. But not all chipping was malicious.
These weird scratchings that we see here are actually not created by birds or anything like that, or weathering. It's a specific scratching action that's happened here. What that is, people used to come here many years ago, thousands of years ago, to temples and scratch away at the sacred surface of the temple, because the temple was a gift from the god. It was the god's house. Scratch away and put it into a little bottle. They would go home with a little essence of that. Some people used to mix that into magic potions and things to be connected to the divine force of this temple.
The force with which they wanted to connect was that of the goddess Isis. Isis was the mother of Horus. Horus was the reincarnated pharaoh on earth. The father of Horus and the husband of Isis was Osiris, the ruler of the underworld. He first ruled on earth, then, when he was murdered, he was reassembled by his wife Isis. She then became pregnant spiritually from him. One myth at Philae is that Khnum from Elephantine helped Isis create the form of Horus. The very heart of this temple revered the power, determination, and love of Isis.
the inner sanctuary of the Temple of Isis on Philae. And this offering table, it's more a plinth actually, would have had a golden statue of Isis. And this is where the priests would have come to adore the goddess. Inside here is one of the most beautiful depictions I've seen of the goddess Hathor, shown as a beautiful woman in the Ptolemaic style with the beautiful head of a cow, so elegantly carved.
This temple was dedicated to Isis, the passionate and powerful goddess shown in unique scenes here.
We have the goddess of the Delta playing the harp to baby Horus and Isis.
Isis became pregnant spiritually from her deceased husband, Osiris. And the pharaoh was seen as Horus on earth. She also was associated with queens.
In the form of the goddess Isis Hathor, there's a lady called Alison, and she is the sister of Cleopatra. Not the great Cleopatra VII, but one of the other Cleopatras from before her.
And we all know Cleopatra was Isis on earth. It's ironic that the Nile almost killed this temple and then saved it. The ancients relied heavily on reading the level of the flood.
Down here, we have a nilometer, depending where in the world you're from, that's what you're going to call it. And this is how they would have measured whether the Nile was going to flood correctly to make the harvest fruitful.
For thousands of years, the flooding of the Nile could predict prosperity or disaster. Up until the 20th century, Egypt still monitored flooding. Now the god of the Nile is controlled by Lake Nasser.
The rocks that we see behind us here are depicted even over here. And what's so special about this depiction is it's the god Hapi shown being protected by the snake in his home underneath these stones in the cataracts of the Nile. The cataracts which are here at Elephantine. This is Hapi inside his home. It is something so special. I'm going to take you to see the top of Philae Temple. This is quite special to come onto the top of an ancient Egyptian temple.
From here, we can see this beautiful landscape, this unique landscape.
Built around the Temple of Isis. I always connect this temple to the color green because of the greenery that grows around it. The green of the fertility of Isis and Osiris.
It is quite special.
I think I'm just going to sit here for a little bit and take it in. I want to show to you the most special piece, in my opinion, in this temple. Here we have the god Mandulus, the god from Nubia, depicted here in this temple. And this text written right here is the final hieroglyphic written in ancient Egypt.
Really?
Around 300 AD. They came in here to convert the Egyptians. This was the last hideaway for the Egyptians. They came in here, the Coptic Christians came in to convert them. This man wrote a little note explaining that on the 24th of August, he was writing this here, asking that his spirit be saved from the people invading here. Oh, and the most sad thing is, it looks like when he finished writing, something happened. Yeah. His chisel hits onto here.
So it's a dramatic
It's
and
the
sad
final one.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very special. Very special
What a
indeed.
fascinating story.
There is so much to see here at Philae Temple. It's one of my favorite temples because you just get a sense of the importance of the religion of the ancient Egyptians. Behind us here is the island of Bega. Bega is the island of Osiris, right adjacent to the island of Isis, of Philae, before it was actually moved. And at this temple, Osiris was worshipped. We can see here, this is what it used to look like. This is the island of Bega. There were actually Nubian people living on the island for thousands of years. From here, you can see the main columns. Now, that is all that remains. On this picture, taken from the early 1900s, we can see the archway of Bega going into the temple where the boats would have arrived going to worship Osiris, viewing the original temple of Isis on the other side.
Isis, who fought so hard to save her husband, is now no longer in view with Osiris anymore. From one ancient Egyptian marvel to another, sailing. Nothing beats a sunset ride on a felucca. This bronze-capped mound is in fact a Roman tomb built in the middle of the Nile.
We are heading a little bit off the window. That's nice.
And it appears that we've allowed Simon to flex his sailing muscles and steer the boat. It seems we've spent most of this trip on the water, yet the ancient Egyptians would have done the same. The Nile can be seen as their ancient highway. The beauty of Aswan is almost completely untouched by modern hand.
Great delivery.
I think that all the Châtelaines of France and you, Kasr, we should club together and buy that house. Look, it's a doer-upper. It's got its own little mooring. Looks in need of love. Actually, the one next would be perfect for Dan. He likes a challenge.
This is bigger. There are more of us. I do like the color turquoise, though.
It will be a timeshare thing.
A more modern monument lies on the horizon, the mausoleum of the wife of Aga Khan, built in 1956.
It feels as though it could have been thousands of years ago. Here with a papyrus.
Exactly.
Just drifting along.
And the mud brick houses just on the islands. This is how people have been living here for thousands of years. And
It's stunning.
That's my favorite part of Egypt, is this part. But what I want to tell you about is, you see these stones here?
Yes.
These big grey stones. This is throughout the entire cataract here. Do you know what that's about?
No, I haven't got a clue. But I'd like to find out.
Well, these stones is what gives the island with the main temple and the main dwelling here its names. So this is why the area is called Elephantine. It's because these stones, the people when they came down here believed that they were shaped like elephants.
Yes, yeah, big grey blocks on the horizon.
Yeah, and the god Hapi, the god of the Nile, he is believed to live underneath these stones, and controlling the Nile underneath the stones.
Okay, so that's his home, just there.
That's Hapi's home.
And there were elephants, weren't there?
There were elephants.
Many
The elephants
thousands
were
of years
brought
ago.
through here by the Nubians and brought up into Egypt. Yeah. So, welcome to my favorite part of Egypt.
I love it. It's so romantic.
It is. On that note, I'll leave you with Philip.
Curtis is making me do this. I would just like to point this out. But apparently, if I touch the water and then put it to my tongue, I will come back to Egypt. And I do want to come back. So here we go, Nile water.
Aswan has been great, but tomorrow we set sail going further south down Lake Nasser.
One day.
Before we board the cruise boat, we embark on a smaller boat with enough luggage for a small village as we head towards our first of the forgotten temples.
We are off to Kalabsha Temple and Bait al-Wali Temple. They were relocated in the 60s. So what we're going to see is not the original site. They were originally 50 kilometers down towards Sudan. But it's going to be quite amazing. There's a very special scene concerning lions that I want to show you.
Oh, exciting.
Crossing the Aswan High Dam, we are now on Lake Nasser. The island temple of Kalabsha is dedicated to a Nubian god named Mandulus. The construction of this temple was completed during Roman Emperor Augustus's reign around 30 BC.
You'll actually find throughout many Egyptian temples in the later period that there are empty cartouches. And even though this cartouche didn't have a name in it, someone has tried to just gouge out. Probably just to make sure that if someone was planning to put their name in there, it would ruin their reputation anyway. A temple would now be, erected by the priests to dedicate it to a certain god. And then depending on how the pharaoh was pleasing priests, they could then get their names placed into certain areas to connect them now to the temple because they've reached that level. And this is the inner sanctuary filled with the gods, equal on either side.
Because this temple is dedicated to the Nubian god Mandulus, inside we see a strong connection as well to the Egyptian god Horus.
Do you know who this is, Stephanie?
No, I don't.
A lot of people don't actually know this god because he's very unknown. We're going to go to a temple on Lake Nasser, further down south, where he was actually deified. This is the god Mahes, the one who is beside you. And Mahes actually is the male god of war.
And he's lion-headed?
Yeah.
Oh.
The only male lion god. And Ramses II had a pet lion named Mahes.
No, he didn't.
He did.
He honestly had a pet lion?
Yes.
I've heard that the ancient Egyptians had cheetahs as pets, but
pet lion, and he took it to war. And at Wadi es-Sebua, I'm going to show you all about it. We are going onto the roof of Kalabsha.
From the roof of Kalabsha, you get an idea of the remoteness of the site.
Oh, wow. Shukran. Welcome to the top of Kalabsha.
I can't believe we're allowed up here.
Well, with me...
Walls are opened in Egypt with curtains.
Shall we go right to the top?
Yes.
Come with me. There we go. Let's go. Let's go, Stephanie. Oh, wow. Just hold on.
Oh my goodness. If my mother realised how there's nothing there, she'd be freaking out.
She would be freaking out, but look at this view and look in front of us. It's Lake Nasser.
You could bring us to all the best places.
I try my best.
Come down, please.
Kalabsha Temple dates to around 30 BC, but its new relocated island site shares itself with several other temples. One of the theories about why Roman Emperor Augustus completed this temple and dedicated it to Mangulus, a Nubian god, was to get the Nubians on his side before his attempted invasion. Left is Nubian Mangulus with Egyptian Horus on the right in this sparsely decorated temple.
Around the back of Kalabsha Temple, we have a pharaoh offering to Isis, Horus, and Mangulus in his human form, with a bit of blue paint still on his face, and inlays for precious stones in the eyes. We go on, we have Horus again, Isis, and Osiris.
In 1970, the temple was already beginning to flood. Work was started to relocate it. It was cut into 13,000 stones and moved by boat to its new island location 50 kilometers north. This island was large enough that it could accommodate more than one temple. The Temple of Beit al-Wali, built by Ramses II in 1200 BC. This fierce conqueror is shown defeating the Nubians in battle with his two sons behind. The other side shows the defeat of the Syrians. The prince presenting captive Libyans, while Pharaoh Ramses holds up the Syrians by their hair. Many of these captives were taken to Egypt to work, but some were executed by the pharaoh. They might be a little bit of propaganda, but the fact is, Ramses was riding on his chariot, killing enemies, smiting the people from Libya, as we can see here. Well, yeah, a lot of people say that he exaggerated. Maybe he did, but he did actually fight all these battles. So who are we to say? On the other wall, we see Nubian captives being brought into Pharaoh, along with the Kushites bringing in their tribute, such as foreign animals like giraffes, bulls, monkeys, leopards, and ostriches. Even though Egypt is in Africa, these exotic African animals were seen as a great gift to give to the Egyptians. The Nubians even gifted Ramses his pet lion. This is Ramses' pet lion.
That's the lion you were telling us about.
This is the Nubians bringing the lion, the pet lion, to Ramses. And at Abu Simbel, we see Ramses in battle with his exact lion, Mahes.
Incredible.
Ramses II had his trained lions brought in from Nubia and had them trained not to kill the Egyptians in the battles.
So there's actual evidence that they use lions in battle. It's not just a myth or a legend.
No, we have, at Abu Simbel, we can see Ramses II on his chariot with his pet lion running next to him. This exact lion.
Ramses' eldest son seen being gifted for bringing in the tributes from Nubia.
The great King Ramses, standing before the goddess Mut, the wife of Amun. Yet, in Ramses' time, when we see Mut, in fact, it is modeled off of the face of the great royal wife, Ramses' one true love, Nefertari, because Ramses was Amun, Nefertari was Mut on earth.
Inside the temple of Beit al-Wali are some of the best preserved colored scenes
Of my favorite pharaoh, Ramses II. Here, Ramses holding a Nubian, smiting him in full color. Look at the red of his skin, the yellow to represent the gold. He's wearing the white crown or the white headcloth. We see here Hathor and Ramses offering to Horus with Selket, the scorpion goddess, to protect from poisons and bites. But look how beautiful the color is here. It's Ramses burning incense over pomegranates, grapes, breads, and they are still colored. It is absolutely beautiful. We have a triad statue of Ramses, Mut, and Hathor. It's incredible. Ramses over here, shown again, so colorful, so beautiful. I've never seen him like this. Offering a green goddess, Ma'at, to Amun. Here we have the blue on Amun, showing that he is in his hidden form. It is so beautiful. Amun again being offered Ma'at, being offered justice, balance. It's incredible. Further down, before we go into the inner sanctum, is scenes repeated. Ramses now giving jars of oil to Amun. Another triad statue, this time with the god from Elephantine. We have Khnum, Ramses in the middle, and Anuket. It is beautiful. We see Satis, another goddess from Elephantine. Khnum, the god of creation, seated, while Ramses II and Anuket come in and give them offerings. In fact, the goddesses behind Ramses are supporting him before the other gods, supporting the fact that Ramses II is in fact on his way to become a god. Again, Ramses on the other side, shown smiting a Libyan, the two major enemies of Ramses II, repeated twice here. The inner sanctuary, we have the gods again repeated from the outside on the inside. But the most amazing thing is this image of Ramses II being suckled by a goddess. Isn't it just amazing? The young prince with a beautiful goddess. Here he offers jars to Ra, Horus. I've never seen Ramses in so much color. Before, Amun and Amun Min, right over here, inside this inner sanctum, would have been probably a golden statue dedicated to Ramses II, because in fact, Ramses declared he was a god. So Ramses would have been in here. We see Ptah on the other side. Amun again being burnt incense of frankincense by Ramses II. Khnum, the creator god, creating life for Ramses. Khnum gave life to Ramses because Ramses lived until he was around 96. And the life from Khnum that went into Ramses created over 150 children. And here is the goddess Anuket, yet again suckling the young prince when he was probably around 13 years old, because Ramses became a co-regent with Seti, his father, at around 16 years old. So here he is being prepared. He's being fed by the goddess to become the pharaoh.
At 3,300 years old, the temples of Ramses at Kalabsha might seem old, but there are even older remnants here. Some stela show ancient life from pre-dynastic times, even showing an elephant. Across the arid island is the Chapel of Dedwen. Dedwen was a Nubian Kushite deity known for gifting wealth and prosperity. He became the patron of incense, a very important commodity to the Nubians. This Nubian chapel was built around 600 BC.
Seti I, the father of Ramses II, erected this giant stela dedicated to his war against the people of Lebanon, because Seti was a great warrior, just as his son would be.
Near Seti's stela is another temple by Ramses II, but to see the best part of this temple, we have to go to the Nubian Museum in Aswan.
A salvaged piece from a temple of Ramses II, and this giant statue was saved from when Lake Nasser was created and flooded that area of the Nile. It is just absolutely beautiful to see Ramses II in beautiful full color.
This temple was called Per Ptah, the House of Ptah, and was issued by Setau, the Viceroy of Kush, the Egyptian representative based in Nubia. Unfortunately, most of this temple is now flooded, and only the outer courtyard and one interior statue could be salvaged. Per Ptah was originally located 90 kilometers south from its new location.
In this temple known as Garf Hussein, which is actually by Ramses II, you can see Ramses here next to Horus. But what I love are these giant depictions of the pharaoh over here with Sekhmet and Ptah. It is absolutely beautiful. They are absolutely giant. Look at the size of some of these depictions of Ramses II. It's absolutely monumental. I can't believe it, that I'm actually seeing this. I've been studying these temples for years, and I'm actually here. So it's sort of like a dream come true for me.
Looking out at Lake Nasser, between the giant, colossal statues of Ramses. This splendid Hathor kiosk, moved 30 kilometers from the site of Keratasi, was the place where the image of Isis would rest on her journey to Lower Nubia. A similar journey that I am embarking on the private Sai Safari boat. Our ride to take us down Lake Nasser has finally arrived. The private Sai Safari boat. One of only a handful of boats that recently offer this unique experience.
Cheers! Oh. You excited?
Discovered we have our own balconies up here.
Oh.
Hello, I can see you.
After a little break in our neighboring master rooms, it is time for lunch.
And lots of beef. It is incredible.
We are incredibly lucky to be sailing on the Sai, going further south on the expanse of over 350 kilometers of Lake Nasser, something that has only recently reopened up for tourism. Our voyage is engulfed by history, relaxing, and creativity.
That's what I'm going to spend my time doing on this boat.
It's a bit like dogs and their owners, isn't it?
A day's sailing, and 200 kilometers later, we pull ashore for the night.
Stephanie, are you ready to set foot on an island in Lake Nasser? It's my first time, it's your first time.
Thank you.
Shukran.
Afwan.
Shukran.
We are the only boat out here for miles. We are completely isolated. No electricity, no telephone lines, no signs of life for miles. It's quite peaceful, actually. As night rolls in, we take a moment to remember the ancestors of the men who work on this boat who were relocated because of the lake. Good morning from Lake Nasser. It's been my biggest dream to be on this lake. I can't wait to explore more later.
The mound behind me, that's now submerged under Lake Nasser, was the original location for the Temple of Dakka.
You could quite possibly count the amount of people that live along Lake Nasser on one hand. They live such a simple life, in such a beautiful landscape. You can't help but wonder, do we have it wrong?
Some of the houses you'll see along the lake in the little islands now are so traditional. They look exactly like the houses would have looked 3,000 years ago. Mud brick, the palm leaves to make the roof, the palm stems to make the patio outside. It's very traditional, tradition that hasn't died.
The crew sets sail further south towards our next historic site. But first, breakfast.
Omelette tagine. Thank you. Full. Huh?
We are now approaching Wadi es-Sebua, the Valley of the Lions. I've been looking forward to seeing this temple for so long.
This site has 3 relocated temples.
Just over the sand dune, you can see the temple of the Valley of the Lions of Ramses II.
We are given a warm welcome by the man who lives at this site by himself, employed to care for the temple. Wadi es-Sebua was built very close to the river and experienced annual flooding. The protective sphinxes were often drowned. Waiting for the flood to subside, engineers had a very small window of opportunity to dismantle the temple and relocate it. Thankfully, by the early 70s, it was saved and moved 4 kilometers inland. Order over chaos was restored, much like the story of the falcon Horus defeating the evil Set and avenging his father Osiris. Captive Nubian enemies crouch below the lion-headed Sphinx of Ramses II. South are the Nubians, and north are the Libyans. The Sphinx was a harsh reminder that you obeyed the Egyptians here. This temple was originally named the Domain of Amun in the worship of Ramses.
Inside the hallway, walking towards the temple of Amun, are these beautiful sphinxes of Ramses. As you walk up, you hear the echoes coming back to you from the temple walls. Ramses standing here with a beautiful woman at his side. Let's go see. It's actually one of Ramses' daughters, named Bintanath.
Around year 25 of Ramses' reign, she is given the title of Great Royal Wife, although she wasn't a wife in that sense, since Ramses and his late wife, Nefertari, disapproved of inbreeding. Bintanath's name is Semitic of Canaanite origin.
This colossal statue of Ramses II holding the staff of Khnum, the creator god. But what's even more impressive is the dedication on the outside. Ramses II smiting the enemies, presenting them before Amun.
Shown as an equal to the god, Ramses wears the feathers of Amun, smiting the Nubians for him and smiting the Libyans for Ra on the other side. This site was the official residence of Setau, the Egyptian nobleman who in year 35 of Ramses' reign became the viceroy of Kush. Ramses trusted Setau to set up this temple as a key trading point for people traveling to and from Egypt between Nubia. For centuries, this forecourt would have been bustling with traders. But that was all the public was allowed to see. Further in the temple, the pharaoh becomes divine.
Inside this temple, Ramses II is declaring himself to be a god. For in fact, we see the god Atum holding Ramses II with his name above.
This North Egyptian god was said to have created the universe.
Ramses, in essence, becoming a god. On the other side, we see Ramses II offering to Amun, Ra, and in the center, himself.
The hidden one, Amun, the king of the gods. On the other side, we see the god Geb, the god of the earth, seated with Ramses, being offered to by the pharaoh. In a lower register, we see the god Amun-Min, Amun as the fertility god, with Ramses appeasing him. Bathed in sunlight, Ramses seated between Amun and his wife Mut. Although Nefertari had died by then, this image of Mut is most probably inspired by Nefertari, since she was the god's wife. Inside this court with pillars lined with statues of Ramses in the form of Osiris, we get the idea that he's taking on more religious roles rather than militaristic endeavors.
The inner sanctuary here shows Ramses II offering to several gods.
1,600 years after its construction, this temple was converted into a Christian church. Ramses on either side offering flowers, but now an image has been altered. In the center, we see an image of Saint Peter. This sanctuary would have originally housed the barge of the gods. On the walls, we see Ramses offering to the barge, an event that actually took place here. The other side, Ramses wears a cap crown or headcloth while pouring out oils and burning incense before the barge. On the barge is the shrine of Amun. The pharaoh holds the staff of the god while offering him lotus oils. And from this, Ramses is given strength from the wife of Amun. A diverse range of gods here, Anath on the left, Tefnut with the lioness head, Ramses, and the god of hunting and war named Anhur. Ramses had a very deep religious understanding. Religion was probably one of the most important things in ancient Egypt, and to study religion was lifting you onto the level of purity. Many people were not allowed in these temples, so you had to have a deep understanding of what you were looking at.
Ramses offering incense to Ptah, himself, Geb, and a beautiful depiction of Hathor shown with the body of a woman and the head of a cow. Quite unique. But what I love the most is Ramses between Hathor and Geb, here shown in full color, wearing his war armor and beautiful blue lapis necklaces.
Showcasing so many gods in one temple meant that Ramses was connecting himself to them, like Amun, who is the king of the gods.
Two sphinxes holding the key of life, wearing the crowns of Upper and Lower Egypt. These are the sphinxes on the outside of this temple, and they are protecting the name of Ramses II.
Ramses wanted to protect his name. That is why he stamped it over and over to ensure we still spoke about him today.
Because this was used by the Coptics, this temple, much of the ceiling has been blacked out. But interestingly, Ramses' name has been taken out with the cross.
Exiting, I start to think of all of those exotic animals brought from Nubia into Egypt that would have rested right here.
I'm going to take you into the side chambers. These are decorated exactly like you will see at Abu Simbel in the side chambers. Blue and yellow, so lapis and gold.
Really made from lapis and gold?
Well, the blue is lapis,
Yes.
So, come see. The yellow represents the gold. In here is Ramses II offering to different gods. Here is Ramses offering to Sekhmet. So you see the gods have got skin made of gold. That's why they are painted in this yellow color.
And Sekhmet was the god that you told us about yesterday.
Yes.
Who had to be tamed by having beer that was tinted red so that she thought she was having blood.
Exactly. That's Sekhmet, goddess of war, which was quite handy for Ramses since he had so many wars. If Ramses down here, I have no idea who's standing here.
No,
because the hieroglyphs are gone and he's gone. That's okay. We come down here. I presume it would be Isis or Selket. We can't actually tell because the hieroglyphs are totally destroyed now.
And what is he pouring here?
So here, he's pouring out from the jar just water over a mound of what would be flowers, something like that, purifying them before the goddess. Here we see him again, Ramses offering to Osiris, the god of the dead, the god of the afterlife.
Yes.
Next to him is Geb. Now, Geb, I'm wearing Geb's bracelet.
Oh,
Exactly. So that's Geb, the god of the earth. So afterlife and this earth, Ramses appeasing both of them.
hedging his bets nicely there.
Exactly. Behind you here, we have the beautiful goddess Isis. Here she is. We've got Isis and Osiris in here. Not sure who he's offering. Well, that's Ramses there. Here, he's offering to Atum. Atum is a very special god. He is the god of creation. He created himself and then created the universe.
Yes.
And he's offering a sphinx, as you can see. So each god is getting a different offering.
A different gift.
We have Hathor, the goddess of love and music over here.
And she's getting...
She's getting incense.
Ah.
Yeah. And then we have Horus, or Ra-Horukti, right here, being offered also probably a mound of perfume. Yeah.
It really brings it to life looking at it with you. Because I see beautiful images, but I cannot possibly pick out who everyone is, what the offerings are.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
I've been studying these temples at Lake Nasser for 2 years now.
Goodness.
I haven't been in here, but I know it like the back of my hand. So it's quite special to come in here for me as well, and now to bring you. So
I love it.
we're going to have a great time seeing the others.
I do have something to test you with, though.
Yes. Test me.
It's got nothing to do with ancient Egypt. What are the eggs? They're super creepy.
Geckos?
Are they geckos?
Gecko eggs, yes.
They're so beautiful. They're all different colours.
Pink, blue, yellow, orange.
So there's still baby geckos in there because they haven't hatched yet.
I dare you to poke one.
No, poor little thing's not ready. Can you believe we're here and it's just our group?
What an experience to be able to see this without tons of tourists around, isn't it?
It makes it feel like 1910, doesn't it? Just the early age of travel.
Even the way we travel.
I know,
rode
our
up in our
boat.
Yeah.
Up on a desert hill awaits our next relocated temple.
I was expecting Lake Nasser to look a bit like the banks of the Nile. All the way around is extremely verdant and green. But there's nothing. It's like a lunar landscape. It's so otherworldly. I wasn't expecting this at all.
1 kilometer away is a much more recent temple that was also relocated. This temple was made of much smaller stones, and by the early 20th century it had completely collapsed, making its relocation much easier. We already sailed past its original location, 40 kilometers north. This is the Temple of Dakka. An effigy of the Egyptian god of wisdom, Thoth, was housed in this naos, with this beautiful light effect around, a repeated theme in ancient Egypt, the balance between light and dark. Anhor and Mangulus merging as one, the combination of Egyptian and Nubian gods are shown in this temple because it was a collaborative effort between Greek pharaoh Ptolemy IV and the Nubian pharaoh Archemani from Meroe. Dating from around 220 BC, the king from deep south in Meroe, Archemani, is shown in this sanctuary. The temple was originally built to affirm the ties between Egypt and Nubia in their trade and military efforts. In the Roman period around 30 BC, Emperor Augustus expanded this temple, building the large entrance pylon. Then, Emperor Tiberius transformed this temple into a Roman fort. Following that, it was used by the Christians, and many Jewish graffiti can be found on the wall still, some believe showing the Ark of the Covenant. This new landscape of Lake Nasser remains unspoiled, and I hope it stays that way. Another Roman period temple, undecorated, was moved in 1966, 35 kilometers south, now known as the Temple of Merharka. It was dedicated to Isis and Serapis.
Huh?
Was it worth it?
It was worth it. This was all Stephanie's idea.
Yes, of course it was.
Yeah, I know.
No, it was.
No way.
Isabel thought it was your idea. I said no, it was Stephanie's idea.
That was my idea.
Was it good?
It was amazing.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Oh, good.
Was it decorative? Or is it just...
Yes, the first one was painted, and there was another temple that went even further.
Oh, did you?
And that one had columns.
Oh.
It's sunset, and it's sadly time to sail on.
Good night.
We are now 250 kilometers from Aswan, halfway on our journey.
Let's go see the temple at Amada.
Our first stop is not a temple, it is a tomb, an entire mountain that was moved 30 kilometers from Aniba near Kasr Ibrim.
In the tomb here of Pennut, it's quite small for a man of such stature, because Pennut was the viceroy of Kush. That meant he was an Egyptian man sent down into Nubia to control the taxes coming up from the kingdom of Kush. In his tomb, we can see his wife and the man Pennut giving a text to, mind the gecko, giving a text to the god Thoth. Thoth writing down that they have not sinned. Quite ironic, considering Pennut sanctioned the robbing of the Valley of the Kings during the reign of Ramses VI. And here we see Pennut's wife and himself again before Horus. Horus presenting them to Osiris, shown in his red dress, and this time not with green skin, wearing a nemes and a crown, the white crown. Here we can see Isis and Nephthys behind, supporting Osiris in his decision to allow the viceroy into heaven. Down here, we can see Pennut on his knees before the cow goddess Hathor, and Hathor is welcoming him into his tomb. This mound is his tomb, the mound that was moved in the 60s. It's amazing. Here's the tomb inside, and Hathor coming out with the lotus and papyrus, greeting the man. Down here is the most intact image of Pennut in the entire tomb. It is Pennut in the middle, being poured over, being cleansed by Thoth and Anubis. The water painted with this beautiful blue, because Pennut started to gain power. The priests started to gain power, and this is where Egypt began to decline. Over here is Pennut's wife shaking a sistrum, and Pennut giving an offering of lotus and papyrus flowers to Osiris. We see the solar barge, which would have taken Pennut on his journey to the afterlife. In the center is a triad statue that would have featured Pennut in the middle, maybe his wife on this side, and a daughter on that side. We're not sure, but Pennut was shown under the protection of the cow goddess Hathor coming out of the tomb, the same scene that we see on the walls. Down here is Pennut and his wife and his family bringing the offerings to Horus, giving them back to Pennut for him to enjoy in the afterlife. Down here is probably the most telling scene. It's Pennut shown with two priests adorning him in jewelry, the jewelry that he sanctioned to be stolen from the Valley of the Kings. It is absolutely incredible to see this. We see very few people depicted like this. Here, Pennut is raised. He's shown in a bigger figure than the priests. Thus, he is more important. Usually, a pharaoh was the only figure shown taller than the average person.
Now crumbled away, it is in the tomb here that we read that Ramses VI rewarded Pennut for his work done in Nubia. He was a high priest. His wife was a high priestess named Dakka, and she used to sing and play the sistrum in the temple at Aniba.
So this is yours. Okay, what's the name? Selket. Well, it's the goddess Selket, the scorpion goddess who protects you from bites. Here she is. Wow.
Just a few hundred meters from the tomb of Pennut is the temple of Derr. In 1966, the relocation of this temple proved to be rather tricky. Since the temple was carved into the mountain, it had to be cut into individual blocks and transported by boat to its new location, preserving the 3,200-year-old temple of Ramses II. The temple was overseen by Hoi, the viceroy of Kush and the predecessor of Setau. In the outer courtyard is a scene of Ramses' son bringing in captive Nubians before the pharaoh. By this time, Egypt had seen a long conflict and peace with Nubia. The Nubians were not only captives, they were revered for their warrior-like abilities, many of them being brought to Egypt as expert archers.
Here, I've just seen something that's made my day. Ramses II in battle, smiting his enemies before Amun. But here is Ramses' pet lion. This is Ma-Hes, the pet lion that's depicted at Bait al-Wali and Abu Simbel, and here at Derr. This lion was trained by the Nubians and brought to Ramses as a gift. We can see Ma-Hes's name written here at the top with the determinative of a lion. Ramses gave this lion an identity, and the name means the one who is beside him. This lion shone beside the great pharaoh.
Dedicated to a triad of gods, no expense was spared in the decoration.
We have Ramses II standing by the tree of life. He's picking his name off of the tree, his royal name, and he is presenting his name towards the god Ptah and Sekhmet. And next to that, we have the god of wisdom, Thoth, writing down exactly what is happening. He's giving Ramses his name.
No war scenes inside this temple, rather religious scenes showing the Egyptians' fervent belief system. Vivid images of the gods like Hathor, the god of fertility, Amun-Min, shown with his erect phallus before the pharaoh. Ramses, frozen in time in procession.
Here is Ramses II, shown wearing the leopard dress with the cap crown. He is here, a high priest. But what's interesting, Ramses and the other priests are presenting the barge with a statue of Ramses towards, no guess, Ramses himself. As we go further south, Ramses is becoming more divine.
This temple feels completely unspoiled. No modern-day lighting, only bursts of sunlight coming through the door. I feel like one of the ancient explorers seeing this temple for the first time. The boldness of colors, the variety of scenes, the change in style of the pharaoh. Here we see Atum greeting Ramses II with the key of life. The pharaoh is shown directly with the gods, like Amun, with his beautifully painted blue skin still visible, and the goddess Isis Hathor holding the pharaoh lovingly. Before the sanctuary, Ramses burns incense for Ra and Hathor. This temple is dedicated to Amun, Ptah, and Ra Horakhti, hence the vast amount of falcon-headed sun deities shown with the pharaoh, like here where we see the god of war, Montu. Horus holding hands with the pharaoh as he receives the key of life, while wearing two beautiful blue wings as his war uniform.
Ramses offering Ma'at, justice, balance, to Amun, Ramses, and the wife of Amun, Mut. But here, Ramses is in the middle, in some way, because Nefertari is known as Mary Mut, the one that pleases Mut. She is the god's wife. In some way, this is Nefertari, Ramses, and Amun.
Nefertari would not be mentioned at this temple since she died before its construction. Hoi, the viceroy of Kush, commissioned this temple to be built to commemorate Ramses' 30th year of reign for his jubilee. It is shortly after this jubilee that we see Ramses taking a step back from his military roles and focusing more and more on his religious duties. The priests raised Ramses to the level of a god for what he had accomplished in the country already. A telling scene is the goddess Seshat writing down millions of years of life for the pharaoh. Seshat's prediction certainly has given Ramses immortality. Whether he will be around for millions of years, who knows, but certainly longer than any of us will remember.
Ramses on either side greeting us into his inner sanctum, burning incense before the barge of himself. Niches here for stela to be placed. Ramses appearing as the god of the moon, Khonsu, then giving offerings to Ptah, shown wearing the cap on his crown. In such color, I can't believe it. I've never seen Ramses so colorful before. The inner sanctum with the four seated statues and Ramses in the center. The king giving an offering to Ra, Ramses' namesake. Again, the barge, the same scene repeated on this side. Yet, Ramses II, shown here in the most beautiful color. Look at his skin, the nemes, the blue on his jewelry. It is absolutely breathtaking. And to be in this temple on Lake Nasser that was relocated, it's just incredible. But what's more incredible is I have this temple all to myself. And in some ways, I would like for tourists to come and see this. But in another way, I don't. Because I don't want these places to lose their magic.
A few meters away is another marvel.
This is the temple of Thutmose III from the original location at Amada. This entire temple, because it was so fragile, was loaded onto a plinth and moved here 6 kilometers when Lake Nasser was constructed. It's just incredible that they moved the entire temple in situ as a one complete structure. Let's go see inside.
Thutmose III ruled Egypt over 3,500 years ago. This temple is one of the first and oldest Egyptian temples created in Nubia. Thutmose III is a mighty warrior, although he's also remembered from the drama between him and his stepmother, Hatshepsut, who also ruled. Many of the faces of Thutmose have been hacked out subsequently after his death. Many successors of Thutmose added on to this temple, calling Thutmose the Lord of Bega, connecting him to the god of the dead, Osiris. Like Ramses years later, Thutmose is also shown being suckled by the goddesses. Many Coptic graffiti from the 6th century can be found here, drawn by Coptic priests who used this as a church and housing. The first court might be largely damaged, but go inside and you'll be astounded by the level of detail. The sanctuary is shared between Thutmose III and his son and successor Amenhotep II. A thought-out slit in the ceiling was carved to allow light to bathe the temple.
Thutmose III shown wearing a yellow nemes, beautiful turquoise necklaces, with the god Ra on this side and Ra Horakti on the other side, giving him the key of life and the other supporting him. Thutmose III wanted to show that he was accepted by the gods after the debacle with his stepmother, Hatshepsut.
The thing is, Thutmose was too young. Hatshepsut had to take control to keep the country stable. The priests of Amun supported Hatshepsut in this, and after, they still continued to support Thutmose, as we see him giving many offerings to Amun.
Thutmose's eyes, nose, and mouth have been chiseled out here, as well as his name, a fate that befell this pharaoh when people figured out what happened between him and Hatshepsut. At one point, he started changing Hatshepsut's temples, but the people, some of them at least, were not having it.
Painted in blue, the hidden god Amun, bathed in a ray of sunlight. The namesake for Thutmose III's son, Amenhotep II. Amenhotep II did much to please Amun. We have stela coming from this temple where Amenhotep says that he has defeated the enemies in the north, in Libya and Syria. He then says he defeated the enemies in the south, in Nubia. He took 6 of these enemies and hung them on the walls of Thebes. He then went down into Nubia and hung one from a temple in Napata. Amenhotep even says that he hung enemies from the prow of his boat returning from the foreign lands. These were clear warning messages from Amenhotep II to the Nubians. He extended his father's temple, not only dedicated now to Amun, but to Ra Horakhti as well.
Here is a pharaoh between two gods, with the name above Amun-hotep, the ruler of Inu. Inu is Cairo, Menefer, Memphis. So this is Amenhotep II inside this temple of Thutmose III. Even in the courtyard, we have the name of Thutmose IV repeated throughout. So this temple was added on and adapted by several kings.
The temple was originally built to celebrate Thutmose III's Jubilee, shown performing these celebrations like leading the cows of Amun or running around the track, a tradition that dates back over 1,000 years before the reign of Thutmose III, something that every pharaoh wanted to do. The hypostyle hall contains the names of 3 dynastic successors, Thutmose III, his son Amenhotep II, and his son Thutmose IV. Thutmose is shown on an equal level with the gods, something that Ramses II would do many years later during the 19th dynasty.
The colors, the preservation, absolutely stunning.
Inside this temple at Amada on Lake Nasser, we have 2 19th dynasty rulers. Very interestingly, here we have Siptah. His name is written here. The very young, sickly king. He was so young and so ill that his sister over here, Ta-Wasret, actually took the throne as a co-regent, and then she became a fully fledged pharaoh. Unfortunately, things went a little bit awry for Ta-Wasret, but it's quite interesting to see that they even left their mark in a temple all the way in the south in Nubia, Siptah and Ta-Wasret. Approaching the fortress of Kasr Ibrim. This fortress was first started by Sesostris and built on by several other pharaohs, and even well into the Coptic period, this fortress was used as a hideout, as a church, even for the Muslims who came in here during the Crusades. There's so much history on this little island. In fact, it was at one stage a big mountain. Underneath of this fortress, there are several temples that are now lost under Lake Nasser. We have a temple for Thutmose III with an inner sanctum with 4 statues shown. Beside that, we have Thutmose III again, sitting here on his throne, receiving the offerings from Kush, the viceroy of Kush, the taxes coming in. We can even see over here, this is the list of the taxes that were brought to this fortress right here. And finally, we even have New Kingdom, 19th dynasty, Seti I, here Seti smiting a Kushite while receiving offerings, taxes, tribute from the people of Kush. On this island as well is where we find the Merowe people. The people of Merowe were a strange mix between Egyptian and Nubian. They had their own culture and their own art style.
The Nubian Museum in Aswan has statues and a temple hailing from Kasr Ibrim.
This lion is found in Kasr Ibrim. Very special art.
Yes.
Different than the art of ancient Egypt and
because this is all Meroitic art.
Yes, Meroitic art.
From Meroe. Yeah.
Meroe influence.
Yes.
Because Meroe, it's located at the south of this, in North Sudan.
In between culture.
Between, yes. You collect between the Nubian native civilization or art and the ancient Egyptian art as well.
You can see it's so different.
It's totally different.
It's weird.
Yes, very weird. When you look, you think they are Roman.
Yeah.
But when you know very well, they are from Marwi. Very weird.
Strange barbird.
Yes. Yeah. And beautiful at the same time. You can imagine it's a bird and man head and also symbols of man. I never ever seen something like that.
Breasts.
And the breasts is also.
It's not quite rigid. It's not quite round. It's this weird in between.
In between everything.
Yeah.
Man and a bird. Male and female.
Yeah, so interesting.
So interesting. The hieroglyphs, the statues, they select each part of ancient Egypt and they did, for example, the statues from the New Kingdom, yes. The hieroglyphs from the Pyramid text,
yeah.
The mortuary temple from the New Kingdom, mix of everything.
Although the Meroitic people were not from this specific island or this specific region, they were further south. They did have a big settlement here on this island. It was the combination of Egyptian and Nubian meeting and creating a unique culture.
Sailing on emerges the feared Nile crocodile. It's at this point that I rarely feel like I'm heading deeper into Africa. As night falls, we scan the bank for crocodile eyeshine. One man draws the shortest straw and has to jump off to moor the boat down for the night.
Must be the pharaoh.
To Curtis!
With a little South African wine. Chin chin.
Day 4, and we are 3/4 down Lake Nasser, ready to sail on closer to Sudan.
It looks like the ocean out here. It feels like the ocean out here.
On the horizon emerges two mountains. Abu Simbel.
Coming out of my room named Nefertari, on the Sai boat, looking across at the temple of Ramses and Nefertari. This is such a privilege.
The temples of Ramses and Nefertari were the most difficult to move. The entire mountain was relocated.
This is incredible. I keep losing words because it's so perfect. It's just so perfect.
I've been wanting to come here since I was 18 years old, and I've never made it each time I've been to Egypt. This is the first time, and this is the perfect way of arriving. I can't believe it.
Built by Ramses II, one dedicated to Nefertari and the other to himself. It has been my dream for so long to see these temples from this perspective. I can't believe how privileged I am to witness these temples from the water. It's a moment I will never forget. We leave the temple behind with the thousands of people that flock to it every day to continue sailing on, because tomorrow I will have the temple all to myself. We pull in just outside of the village set up in the 60s to accommodate the people who moved the monuments.
You really find the best ways of arriving at temples in style. On the back of a pickup. This is the life, isn't it? These were the days when you were allowed to do this in Europe. And here we are. I'm so happy to be here with you.
The facade features family members and 4 statues of Ramses. At the entrance above is a statue representing the pharaoh's name personified.
After the majestic scene of Ramses II at Kadesh, we see Ramses returning to Egypt, Stephanie, with the blue crown on, holding the soul of Amun. Here is his horse, but his pet lion, Ma-Hes, leaping forward. See how happy the lion is?
He's had a great war.
He's had a great war, and they are being taken all the way down. You can see Ramses' soldiers over here bringing in different captives. Here we can see they are bringing in Libyan captives.
The captives that we saw as we came in.
Yes, but here is the pet lion that clearly survived the war. In this scene, Stephanie, we can see Ramses II, the pharaoh, offering jars of wine to another god. Do you know who this god is?
No, I don't recognize that one.
This god is Ramses II himself.
No, come on.
He is. This is Ramses now fully deified. He's wearing the ram's horns of Amun, the same ram's horns that Alexander the Great adopted because of Ramses II.
He wanted to be the new Ramses the Great.
Exactly.
Well, as Percy said, he's got quite the ego.
He does, but at this point in his life, this was justified.
What age was he around the time that he had
Around the time that he had this made, probably about 40 years old. Simply because we do know that the temple next door has a very sad story.
The temple that Ramses built for the love of his life, Nefertari. The ultimate wife, she supported the pharaoh in more ways than one.
Here, Nefertari is actually in battle with her husband in Libya.
Nefertari shares this temple with another goddess.
On all of the columns, as you go through towards the sanctuary, there is the goddess Hathor, the goddess of beauty and love.
The inner sanctuary shows Nefertari protected by Hathor, with Ramses offering to them on the side.
The amazing thing here is that Ramses and Nefertari are shown at the same height on the exterior of the temple, and that is unique for any queen in ancient Egypt.
What do we call this in Egyptian?
Fah.
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 Fah. Fah mostly.
Fah.
Fah mostly. In South Africa, we say bri.
Right.
Bri. You know what, Stephanie?
What?
Don't you think we should just like sell everything and move to the desert?
Really?
No, but it sounds fantastic on camera.
And with that, sadly, Stephanie had to leave to catch her flight.
So that's the sketch that I did of Abdul from our wonderful party last night. I have to show you.
Yes.
I did you.
Abdul, eh?
Abdul.
Ah, yes.
It's
Bon appétit.
Looks like looking in a mirror.
Oh, Stephanopoulos.
Yeah, that's good. It's okay.
It's okay.
Okay.
We are here at Abu Simbel overnight on our Lake Nasser boat, the Sai. So we're going to see the Abu Simbel Sound and Light Show. Front row, Abu Simbel Sound and Light. Let's go, guys. Let's do it.
The Nile, my eternal companion, has blessed these banks from the dawn of the world. The passage of civilizations, the course of the stars, dawns and dusks are reflected in the flow of its foam. Then halfway through the 20th century, a rumor reaches the hills, an alarm that breaks the peaceful dreaming of its waves. This new splendor takes me back to the old days, to the times of the 19th dynasty. A king carved his destiny. The greatest of the pharaohs, Ramses. I remember his passion, his strength, his iron will, and I remember the first great royal lady, the sweetest of his queens, for whom the sun shines, Nefertari.
How pleasant is the scent of the wild mimosas, my lord.
My beloved, nothing can compare with the intriguing fragrance of your skin. The royal entourage glide their vessels down the river. Nubia gives them refuge at her bosom.
My lord, the radiant beauty of this landscape is stunning. The air is brilliant as the purest crystal.
On its way, the riverbanks adorn the Nile with gold-colored sand. Prelude of glory. The kingdom of Hatti is the loathed ripe, and in the 5th year of my reign, the city of Kadesh will be the inevitable encounter. Infantrymen, archers, charioteers, proud chargers with trembling nostrils, the 4 divisions of the empire. Countless are the troops of the Hittites, his chariots terrible, infinite, embark on a brutal and unbridled enemy gallop. It is the night of Ra, the last of the year. The fires of thousands of oil lamps keep vigil all over the kingdom. At daybreak, the sun and Sothis will meet once more, and the annual flooding will arrive. The divine barge of Amun-Ra, waiting inside the temple, will be taken to the royal vessel. It will travel down the river for the entire country to adore, the symbol of the floods. The inauguration, the 24th year of his reign, witnessed an exceptional ceremony. Do you recall, Pharaoh, the day of glory?
The day of glory.
Nefertari shines bright and luminous, wearing the crown of Sothis with a lofty majesty, the morning star. Out of love for her, the sun rises. I, Ramses the Great, radiant with power, throw my first ray at the horizon. Burst out into a rushing torrent and grant life to the beloved land of Egypt. Gift of the Nile.
Just before sunrise, the sun lightly kisses the temple, causing it to become a beautiful pink color. At the center of the facade is a god known as Ra-Horakhti, meaning Horus of the horizon. In a smaller figure next to Ramses is his chief wife, Nefertari. On the opposite side is Ramses' mother, Mut Toy. Tied up below their feet are the African captives. By building this temple in Nubia and showing the captives, Ramses was sending out a strong message. The captives were from Nubia, Kush, Meroe, Libya, and beyond. There is a change on the opposite side below Ramses and Nefertari. These are the tied-up captives of the north, identified by their unique hairstyles. Canaanites, Hittites, Assyrians, Persians, and more. Ramses clearly showed the Egyptians as in charge. The different forms of Horus are lined up, attentively guarding the temple. Out of all the relocated temples, Abu Simbel was the most unique and challenging. It was raised 65 meters higher and 200 meters back, each block cut by hand. The entire Abu Simbel relocation project took over 8 years to complete. Astonishingly, even the 2 mountains it was originally carved in was recreated. The temple was commissioned after Ramses' Battle of Kadesh and took over 20 years to complete. Ramses Pleasing Amun was the ancient name. Now it is called Abu Simbel because in 1813, when explorers were led here by a young boy, his name was Simbel. The temple now means the father of Simbel.
As we walk past the colonnaded hall here, Ramses is sitting on either side as Osiris. It's amazing to have this temple all to myself at sunrise, because I get to witness the phenomenon of the sunrise on the statues of Ramses, Amun, Ptah, and Ra.
The sun bursts through the entrance on 2 days a year, 21st of February and 21st of October, marking the pharaoh's birth and his coronation. Amun-Min anointed with oil by Ramses on the side, with other images of the pharaoh giving offerings to the gods. In the sanctum, a barge containing a statue of Ramses as Amun would be placed. It was here that Ramses fully became a god. On this site, he wanted to remind us of his greatest achievements. Possibly his most iconic scene, the Battle of Kadesh.
Ramses on his horse and chariot, shooting his bow and arrow out towards the fortress of the Hittites.
He fought in so many victorious battles, starting from the reign of his father. But the one battle that Ramses was most proud of was Kadesh.
The echoes in here without a single soul. You can just imagine when the priests came in here burning incense for Ramses, how that would have sounded. Passing scenes like this. Passing scenes like this one, with Ramses II smiting enemies from all nations before the Almighty God, Amun. It is absolutely breathtaking. Ramses on his chariot with his horse, after a victorious battle, returning with Mahes, his pet lion, the lion that we've seen depicted throughout the temples along the now Lake Nasser. Mahes leaping forward, mouth open, tongue out with joy. Mahes's name means the one who is beside him. This is probably one of my favorite scenes, and people forget about this beautiful, majestic animal that fought in war with Ramses. Before them, we have Ramses' army approaching with their bows, and before them, the captives. These are Nubian captives, bound around the neck and the arms, with Ramses leading them in to the city.
On the other side, we can see the Egyptians training Mahes, taken to the battle of Kadesh. The entire battle is documented in this temple. Ramses' issue with the Hittites started back in the reign of his father Seti. Seti won for a brief time, but by the time of Ramses, he wanted to take control. En route to Kadesh, Ramses' men captured 2 Hittite spies. Pharaoh's men tortured them, wanting to learn the truth about Mutawalis, the king of the Hittites, and his location. The men were brought before Ramses. They told Ramses that Mutawalis was 200 kilometers north. Ramses' men continued forward, set up a camp just outside Kadesh across the river, now in modern-day Turkey. However, Ramses was deceived. The 2 men had lied, and Ramses and his men were ambushed from the Hittites across the river. The Egyptians were outnumbered. It looked like defeat. The Egyptians fought valiantly, but then another Egyptian unit arrived, and they were able to chase the Hittites back across the river. Both sides retreated for the night. At camp, Ramses received a letter from Mutawalis asking for a draw, since Ramses had killed the Hittite's son. The next day, Ramses and his injured army set out for the stronghold of Kadesh. The city was perfectly placed between the river. The faster Egyptian chariots encircled the city, perfectly illustrated here. The battle was chaos. They seemed evenly matched. After hours of fighting, many Hittites were dead in the river, and many Egyptians were killed. Ramses returned back to Egypt as the victor. The total severed hands of the fallen vile Hatti, as Ramses referred to them, were presented to the pharaoh. Some historians say this was boastful, and that the battle was a draw. Yet the Hittites wrote letters to Ramses referring to themselves as your servant. If they won, why would they refer to themselves as this? Nevertheless, Ramses II was a great warrior and fought in countless successful battles throughout his empire. Ramses' legacy does not only spread to the battlefield, he also had many wives and produced almost 200 children. This side we have Ramses' sons, his firstborn sons, starting with Amun-Her-Kepshef and ending here, many sons that would ultimately go into battle with Ramses. In scenes here, we can see 3 of Ramses' sons that accompanied him into battle. It was quite a family operation for Ramses II. The young princes are indicated from the side lock of hair, here with his brothers, his name written out, Amun-Her-Kepshef. This temple is to commemorate Ramses' war efforts, showing him smiting his enemy. He's in battle, killing a Libyan man, and over here, stepping on the head of the enemy. This prolific warrior wanted to show what he did. He fought in so many battles. He lived until he was 96. Ramses II, showing himself here as a living god, all-powerful.
And the god that is worshipped in this temple is on this wall, right over here. We can see Ramses II offering 2 jars of wine with his name, Usr Ma'itra, written here. And another special god, now not seated with a triad of other gods, but as a single deity, wearing the ram's horn of Amun. This god's name is indicated over here. It is Ramses II. Ramses giving offerings to Ramses, because by this point in his life, he had retired from militaristic actions and took a more religious and political role. And for that, his sons became part of the military, and Ramses then was deified.
Although this is not the first time, many pharaohs were deified.
Above, we can see where Ramses II had his coronation, at Jebel Barkal, down in Sudan, just a few kilometers from here. There's Ramses standing before the serpent coming out of the mound. That signifies the sacred mound of Amun in Nubia.
Visually, Amun is distinct from his crown with 2 feathers. He often appears with blue skin, as he was the hidden god, the god that was always present. Amun had many roles in ancient Egypt. He was the supreme god, the king over all gods. He was connected with the strength of the ram, which is why Ramses often wears the ram's horn of Amun. Lord of truth, father of the gods, maker of men, creator of all animals, all things great and small, Lord of things that are, creator of the key of life. This is how Ramses referred to Amun, even including him in his birth name. He is always shown in the company of the gods, like the fierce lioness goddess, Sekhmet, the one who symbolized strength in war. Apart from the god of the living, Amun, Ramses also connected himself to the god of the dead, Osiris. Ramses becoming Osiris, becoming a god, meaning he will be reborn and live forever. In the main temple at Abu Simbel is my favorite scene. Well, second favorite scene. I'll show you my favorite in a moment. We have Nefertari shaking sistrums before Ramses, giving an offering of incense to the gods. But Nefertari is shown tall and slender, beautifully depicted in full color in this temple. On the other side, we have the god Amun-Min shown with his erect penis, the god of fertility. Behind him is Ramses II with Hathor. Hathor here would actually be Nefertari, because both of these royals were deified within this space. My absolute favorite scene inside Abu Simbel is this one. It is Ramses with the goddess Mut. Yet Mut over here is again Nefertari. Nefertari is holding him behind the head, pulling him in by the arm, ready to give him a kiss. It is so touching, so beautiful, so romantic. Exactly how Ramses II was with his wife. Their religion was based on balance, and we can see the balance here between female and male gods blessing Ramses. We know that the ancient Egyptians held women in high regard, and Ramses was no exception to this. A rare scene shows Nefertari as a young woman with the side lock of youth, shaking the sistrum before Hathor. Nefertari and Ramses had met when they were around 13 years old, before Ramses became pharaoh. Nefertari was not only Ramses' wife, she was his companion. She was trained by Ramses' mother to be the best wife and the best queen possible. We see them performing many rituals together. The second columned hall features Ramses in intimate, direct scenes with the gods. Montu, the Theban god of war, offering the key of life to Ramses, gently touching it to his nose. Montu's hand reaches to the back of the pharaoh, supporting his head, supporting him in his efforts. The protector of Pharaoh on earth, Horus, supports a smiling Ramses. The doorway before the sanctuary shows the pharaoh performing his jubilee rites, and hidden in complete shadow is the mysterious god Ptah. Opposite is Khnum. Ptah was the god of craftsmen. Khnum was the god that crafted your destiny. These two came together and formed the destiny for the then deified king. The outside of this temple contains a closer look at the life of this pharaoh. A chapel dedicated to the god of wisdom is on the side of this magnificent structure. A head of Ramses lays in the sand. It broke off during antiquity in an earthquake. Commemorating a Hittite princess union, many stelas such as this around the temple give us an insight into his reality. Possibly the saddest scene here at Abu Simbel is on a stela on the side. It is showing Nefertari seated on a throne, enclosed by a canopy that usually was associated with death. We see Ramses II with their daughter Merit Amun offering to the gods. Nefertari is seated below because at this point she had already died. This is just one of many everyday scenes, if we can call it that, of Ramses on the outside. Some stela show Ramses with his son receiving offerings. Next to Nefertari's temple are other stela as well. The prince is identified through the feather scepter. The viceroy of Kush bows before the pharaoh. And of course a stela glorifying Ramses in battle, one of the longest ruling pharaohs of all time. Though just a few steps away is the second temple, dedicated to Ramses' love of his life, Nefertari. She is one of just a few queens to have an entire temple dedicated to her by her husband and pharaoh.
The smaller temple at Abu Simbel, yet it's the more beautiful one. It's the first time I've ever been in here by myself. I have time to observe the face of Hathor, the face of Nefertari, inside this beautiful temple. But my favorite scene is further down here. It is the inner sanctum with the statue of Hathor coming out. Nefertari underneath the chin of Hathor. Over here is Ramses giving offerings to both of them. And around the side over here is Ramses and Nefertari seated on the throne of Egypt, shown at the same height, shown as equals.
This scene would suggest that Nefertari was a co-regent with Ramses at one point. She was in charge of the politics when her husband was away at war. One event would cause Ramses to change everything. While he was away, there was an attempted attack on Nefertari.
Nefertari even accompanied Ramses II into several battles. A strong woman behind her even stronger husband. She's shown here supporting him, wearing a beautiful dress with the long hair and the beautiful looped earrings. Next to her is Ramses smiting his enemy. They are quite a team, I would say. On the other side of the temple, we can see another scene of Ramses and Nefertari at battle, this time not with the people of Amuru, but the people of Nubia. Ramses smiting the Nubian man by holding up by his hair.
This smiting was overseen by Amun, who offers Ramses his sword.
And the beautiful Nefertari shown wearing a short wig, again supporting her husband. And we know that she accompanied him on at least 2 battles. She was quite a phenomenal woman.
A very strong female presence is in this temple, not only through the gods, but through Nefertari's image repeated over and over. She wears the mother goddess crown of Mut. Ramses shown wearing the horns of Amun, connecting these two spiritually. The king holds out incense. This act would have been for eternity, as when people walk down the center, he's burning incense for the offerings coming to his great royal wife. Nefertari selected the other wives for Ramses. We can see that these two had a strong bond, not only for their love, but for their country. Above the queen is the name of Ramses, and above Ramses is the name of the queen. They were equal.
Inside Nefertari's temple, with the columned hall with Hathor and Ramses and Nefertari repeated several times. We see Ramses giving offerings to the gods to ensure a peaceful life for him and his wife. We see Nefertari again shaking the sistrum before Hathor, with Ramses right behind Hathor, wearing the horns of Amun, offering to Ra. In this hallway here, we can see Ramses giving an offering on this side to Hathor, shown in the barge. Yet, repeated on the other side of this temple is Nefertari performing the exact same role as her pharaoh husband, Ramses II. Here is Nefertari offering lotus and papyrus to Hathor on the barge in the marshes. The crowning of Nefertari. Here we see Hathor, we see Isis, and they are placing the crown of Mut, upon a young Nefertari. In this way, they are proving that Nefertari has become a goddess.
We know that Ramses was not born of a royal family line. He was born in the north, in Avaris. Nefertari was born in Luxor, in Thebes, or Waset. There is slight evidence to suggest that Nefertari's family were of noble origins in Thebes. She was the perfect wife for Ramses, not only beautiful, not only intelligent, she could secure Ramses' future to becoming a fully fledged god. By marrying a woman of such stature, it proved to the gods and the public that he was worthy.
Ramses II, shown with the god Set, the god of chaos. They are both here because on the other side we have Horus, the balance, making the pharaoh a balanced ruler, showing the chaos and the justice coming together. And of course, Ramses II was born in Avaris, a Hyksos capital, where the god Set was revered. Even Ramses' father's name was Seti. So this is a rare image of seeing Set and Horus placing the crown of Upper and Lower Egypt on the pharaoh.
Here, Ramses writes a dedication where he says that Nefertari is the one for whom the sun shines. He wanted to show the importance of his wife, and thus he put these two statues of her on the facade at the same height as himself.
Standing next to their parents are the children of Ramses and Nefertari. Here is a young prince. On this side is another young prince, shown with their beautiful side lock of youth. And what's interesting is, beneath the father, we have the sons. And next to the mother, we have the daughters. And here are Ramses and Nefertari's daughters, the young princesses.
It's heartbreaking that Nefertari never saw these temples completed, as they reflect her name, the most beautiful of them all. We have now reached the end of our journey 350 kilometers south of Aswan. Sailing over Balana, the burial site for Nubian kings between 400 and 600 AD, before Christianity took over. Undecorated tombs now sunken under Lake Nasser. It is impossible to know who these crowns belong to, yet they are the crowning jewel in our journey, the final outcry of ancient Egyptian and Nubian culture that survive from Lake Nasser.